Before Sherril comes up, she's going to talk about her bill. The basic idea for the tax or fee on greenhouse gas emissions is we impose a fee on fossil fuels as they enter the economy, and that's based on their greenhouse gas emissions at combustion, or as they pass from the source to the sink of combustion. This levels the playing field for renewable energy production. The fee is, of course, passed on to customers, consumers, ourselves. This encourages us to be greenhouse gas pollution conscious when we buy stuff, and what we should do is avoid greenhouse gas intensive products. The tax rises until emissions are reduced sufficiently to get us where we want to go. As Sherril's going to talk about, this is the mechanism that the Citizens Climate Lobby proposes at the national level. This is what's in operation in British Columbia. There are no states in the United States that have a tax or a fee approach. Okay, I'm going to pass it on to Sherril. Sherril is with the Southern Oregon Citizens Climate Lobby, and I'm going to pass the microphone to her and get some batteries. And I'll pull up your slideshow.
Thank you, Alan. Hi. I want to thank SOCAN for inviting us here tonight to talk on CCLers. What we're passionate about is federal legislation for pricing carbon. And Citizens Climate Lobby is an international organization. It was founded in 2007. It's primarily in the United States and Canada, but 14 other countries have grabbed onto our idea for their country for pricing carbon. And we have about 300 chapters, Southern Oregon's chapters here. We meet in Ashland. That's it. No?
No, Jack thinks I didn't pull up the one that's
The version, okay. We have about 8,000 volunteers.
I just saved it back. Scream at me if it's not.
And we have about 8,000 volunteers, and our goal is to get a chapter in every congressional district in the U.S. One of our methods of influencing for federal legislation is to meet with our members of Congress in Washington. We lobby there, we lobby locally with staff and members of Congress. We also reach out through media, through the newspapers, writing letters to the editor, writing personal notes to our members of Congress, and doing outreach from getting more members for Citizens Climate Lobby. So we're trying to get a carbon fee and dividend bill passed in Congress. So I need two here. Sure. I'll tell you. Okay, so we're looking for a revenue neutral carbon bill, which I categorize more as it doesn't build a bigger government. So anyway, this is kind of the basic premise which Alan just had on one of his slides. Putting a price on carbon decreases the fossil fuel usage, and then that spurs alternative energy companies to invest, etc., and therefore less carbon is emitted. So how it works is we apply a fee to all fossil fuels and all greenhouse gases. So we have actually I'm going to backtrack a little bit. We have a legislative proposal, and the details of it I'm going to have available at the back if you're interested in taking a copy with you. This is, just a skeleton of it. So we apply the fee to the fossil fuels and other greenhouse gases. This fee is dollars per ton of CO2 equivalent emissions potential in each type of fuel or greenhouse gas. And so Citizens Climate Lobby proposal accounts for that full life cycle of whatever fuel we're looking at, or whatever gas we're looking at. And we prefer to collect those fees at the furthest upstream that you can, which is at the source. And one of the reasons for doing this is if we're exporting fuels out of the country, because of WTO, they have to be as raw. They can't be considered a product. Otherwise, they wouldn't get taxed, because WTO says you cannot tax things, exports, because they cannot tax our exports. And but they have to be carbon products. So anyway, that's an important point. So we try to go as upstream as possible, and then steadily increase that fee each year. So in our proposal, we're starting at $15 per ton of CO2 equivalents, and then increasing that $10 each year. And 100% of our revenues collected from that go back to households. And this is an important feature, and it's becoming more popular. I'll talk about the bills in the legislature later. But for the economic survivability of a carbon fee, we have found by the study that we did that if you return all those fees in equal shares to households, it actually drives the economy. It's better than doing no carbon fee or tax at all. And so we are in favor of that. And if things are going to increase in price because we're putting a fee on carbon, people get back a check every month, and for 2/3 of the households, that check will cover those increases in fuel costs for them, or products for them. So the rising fee on carbon is a real price incentive for the industry and for individuals. As the price of fuels rises, then companies will be looking to invest in renewable energy products and ways to create energy in a sustainable way. And therefore, there'll be a falling investment in the fossil fuel industry. And consumers will make different decisions about their lives too. It may drive you more towards a renewable energy sources, a car that burns less gas, etc. And you may put the solar panels on your house. It will drive the private consumer as well. Business-wise, our proposal presents a predictable fee, and that is one of the biggest assets or biggest differences, I think, between putting a fee versus putting a cap, and we'll go into that later. But the industries and individuals will know what the price of carbon will be each year looking ahead, and they can make investments. Already Shell Oil and Exxon are planning on a carbon fee, and they work that into their planning in the future for what they're investing in. And businesses, of course, I talked about it, will pass along the costs if we get a carbon fee or tax. However, in our plan, the families will be able to cover those increases. And then border adjustments. Go ahead and change. So one of the things that gets talked about a lot is, oh, well, if we change, what about China? What about India? And the lovely thing that I appreciate about CCL and doing a federal carbon tax is we will have border adjustments. We'll have tariffs at the border for goods coming from other countries into the U.S. If they don't already have a carbon pricing mechanism in their country up to our standards, or partially up to our, it will be flexible, but we'll put that price on it for them, and we'll take the revenues. So what will they do? They will say, well, we don't want to give the U.S. those revenues. We should get a carbon fee mechanism in our own country. and will keep the revenue. So it will really drive other countries, because we're so important as far as our buying, our consumerism here, it will drive other countries to put a carbon pricing mechanism in their economy. The other part of the border adjustment goes for what we produce in our country. We don't want to make our manufacturers not be able to compete on the world market. So when they are exporting carbon-intensive products like steel, cement, glass, and such, we will actually rebate their carbon fees back to them, because otherwise they wouldn't be competitive in the world market. Okay, government-wise, revenue neutral to me, I was defining as not increasing the size of a government, because those revenues, none of them go back to the government. They don't even go back for clean energy purposes or studies and all that sort of thing. They go back to the people. It also, under our proposal, it's administered by already existing agencies. And next one. And so in a political way, Republicans like the revenue neutrality, right? They don't want to build the size of government. They also like the free market approach, that it's really, we put the fee on carbon, let's see what happens in the market, and that's what we'll end up with. It's not determining what kind of energy we'll end up with, but it will drive it towards the renewables. They also hate the EPA regulations, as you know. And so that's a big selling point of this proposal when we've been talking to the members of Congress is, do you want more EPA regulations, or do you want the free market? And Democrats are increasingly favoring a carbon fee. And Democrats, they've been more challenging to accept the revenue neutrality of it. They'd like to take that revenue and create programs and such for the society, but we pointed out to them the reasons economically it's important to give it back to the people. It's great for the country to grow. So in our proposal, this is kind of an example. If you're starting out the first year, $15 per ton, the gasoline would go up 14 cents a gallon, electricity up 8%, and the monthly dividend would be $54 per household. And the dividends are according to adults and children in the household and such. So next, at year 10, so after that it's 10 years, $10 per year, so it's up to $105 per ton is the tax or the fee. And gasoline is $1.08 more a gallon, electricity is up 32%, monthly dividend is $324. At that point, so 10 years down the line, the CO2 emissions will be reduced to 69% of 1990 levels. So at 10 years, also clean energy will become cheaper than carbon-based energy, and coal, electricity made from coal, will be phased out. So I got a lot of these figures and statements here based on the REMI report. We had a company named Regional Economic Modeling, which is a respected independent company that does economic and other kind of forecasting for both government and private agencies. We asked them to take our bill and look at the forecast of it for the next 20 years. And look at the economics, the climate, the income to households, the power, and according to 9 different regions of the country. And one thing they didn't have in the title here is health. How many lives are saved because we've got cleaner air, or no, the air isn't getting worse, I should say. And here's a couple of the graphs. Now, this report is 124 pages, and you can look at it online by just doing REMI carbon tax. I have a 4-page summary, which has more graphs than this and more of an explanation that CCL put together. That will be available in the back. But this has been really important in seeing what economically would happen with our particular proposal. And this report came out right before our June lobbying session last year, and all the members of the meetings we had with members of Congress, they were extremely interested because the argument has been if we price carbon or we put a tax on carbon, the economy is going to tank, and it actually shows that the economy is going to get better than if we do nothing at all. We don't have. So on the left, it shows emissions going down, and by 2035, which is the 20-year mark, 50%, they're 50% down of 1990 levels. And in 10 years, I guess we already talked about that. And then job creation, 1 million jobs in 4 years and 2 million in 9 years, and they just keep going up, the jobs. And of course, most of them are probably renewables. So this is just a basic outline of, what the remedy found, and that there is no economic case to not do a carbon fee. So we support this carbon fee and dividend. We actually, that's our first favorite solution. Our second favorite is the cap and dividend. And so, but I'm going to point out more the fee and dividend and why we prefer the fee. Just a few ideas about that. So as I mentioned before, it really lends predictability for forecasting investments for industries. And it's looking in hindsight. You pay a tax on what you've used and what you've taken out of the ground or whatever, rather than having forecasting forward the year ahead and what your price of permits is going to be, etc. So it's transparent, it's easily understandable, it's a very simple approach. It can be instituted in a short time and doesn't cost very much to administer it. No new agencies are needed to administer it. And one of the arguments is it's also a lot less susceptible to corruption or special interests coming in every year and deciding what the price of things is going to be, etc., than a cap. And we can address the emissions if we're putting a tax at the source. It's very easy to address every sector of things and out all at once or close together rather than spreading it out. We can get it done faster. And it also lends itself more easily to those border adjustments. It's more straightforward to put a price, the tariffs on those products that come in from countries that don't have a carbon price. So, and Republicans don't like the cap because of the bureaucracy of it, and Democrats don't like the trading because they're worried about the low-income people and the fluctuations of energy prices. So, in summary, that we prefer the fee, and CCL has worked very hard to craft a bill that is going to be acceptable to both parties. And right now, we're looking for a Republican that will sponsor a bill. But there are two bills, I think that's the next, yes, there are two bills that have been introduced in this Congress, and we're very excited about them because they're both revenue neutral and they return 100% of the revenue to households. And this has not happened before in any bill where it goes back to households. We think that CCL's had some influence with our lobbying about that, and that REMI report, you have to have the revenue going back to households in order to get those results. And so we think that that's really great. McDermott, who's from Washington, this bill is very close to ours. It's talking about permits, but the permits are really, you have unlimited permits and then they price the permits and you have to buy them 14 days before or 14 days after you take that fuel out of the ground, for instance. it's basically a fee. And CCL's wondering if they're going to get away with selling permits versus just calling it a tax. And what's the other thing about this one? Yeah, I think, oh, I know. EPA sets the prices of the permits, and we're wondering if the Republicans are going to accept that. And then this is the other bill from Van Hollen of Maryland. This is more of a cap bill. So he's suggesting capping the emissions and selling permits, auctioning them. But the revenues from those go back to people. So that's the stands out. Now I have a sheet about those bills also for you to take if you'd like. It was a lot more detailed than this. So you're welcome to take that. All right, is it question time or do you want to wait till the end?
I think we should wait till the end.
Okay.
So we try and keep on schedule. Thanks a lot, Cheryl.